I'm your host, Lev Polyakov, coming at you all the way live today, talking about the legacy of Christian with Geno Samuel joining us as the wonderful Rose of Dawn and bad Billy Pratt. As always, Giovanni Pennacchietti with the Fez, rocking the Fez. Gio, very big Christorian for a long time, and again,
Yeah.
I'm just very grateful for wonderful people to come together and talk, and especially when it comes to internet culture. Chris Chan, I really do believe that there is a metaphorical dimensional merge happening when people get together like they do on the internet and cross all these different boundaries. So anyway, the first thing that I wanted to ask to Gino is, you are an amazing documentarian. You're working on New Antarctica documentary. You are a brilliant musician. I am very addicted to listening to your songs. Why Chris Chan? How did that whole thing start?
Well, I first discovered Christian, I guess, around 2011 when I was exploring B over on 4chan because it was apparently a dark place on the internet, and I was interested in finding out what's all the huff about. So that's where people were posting about Christian, saying if he was legit or not. I really didn't understand at that time. I thought it was just like some sort of troll himself who liked to play games and win a lot. I really didn't know anything. But so then I went to YouTube and I found his 25th birthday video, and I found myself relating with him a lot back in the day, which was really interesting. And beyond that, I started exploring all of his other videos, and the fascination grew up to a point, and then it faded, and then it went again, and then it faded again. And then around 2017, I got interested again. I was binging all of Chris Chan's videos for a long time, and I wanted to have some sort of video series, some sort of video catalog, some sort of video source that was kind of like the quickie, the Christian Wikipedia, just in video form and in a more neutral sense, without all the insulting, I guess, that's happening on the quickie. So since that didn't exist, I decided to make it myself. Basically, it just came about because I wanted it to exist, and no one had it made yet. So
Mm.
I made it myself. That's where it started.
And we have several questions here, which I'm thankful that Billy Pratt wrote, and I'm sure one of these Billy would like to ask as well, and I'm sure Rose has a lot to say, so I don't even want to speak. I want Billy and Rose to speak, but also just making sure, Gino, can you tap your mic? Because maybe it is not the mic that's currently has the sound coming through. I don't... No. There we go. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. I knew that mic
I
looked too
did the
damn
thing.
professional. It
I
looked too
did the
professional. So while Gino is figuring out the mic situation, I want to ask everybody to subscribe, add a like for the sake of the algorithm. It always helps, and it is
Yep.
always appreciated.
Well,
So
it's
on.
fascinating.
I'm back.
There
There
we
we
go.
go.
Oh,
I'm back.
Bro.
that
There
is so
we go. That's
smooth.
the voice.
All right.
That's the
There
one.
we go.
Especially when Gino hits the highs
Seven.
of like when Chris Chan is really like ranting. But before the stream we were discussing the pronoun thing, and I think as much as I have absolutely no respect for CWC, that goes without saying. I mean, I've gotten heat in the street before, but I think what you're doing with respecting the pronouns and transitioning it as the series goes along, that's not a pun. I mean like your transition.
Closer to the mic.
Oh yeah, when you're transitioning into like the different modes of Chris's story, Christine's story, I think that what you're trying to do, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you are trying to sort of view it from the perspective of CWC rather than a lot of other documentaries where it's like, look at the freak show. I mean, inevitably there's always the question of exploitation in any
Yeah.
documentary film, but is that how are you approaching? Are you sort of narrativizing Chris's story? You know.
Yeah. To a sense, it's more like giving Christine a voice, in a sense, rather than giving my own opinion. But yeah, mostly I'm just kind of trying to stick to what's legally true. Because like there is apparently documentation that Christine is a female on her driver's license, and when she goes to court for like new offenses, she's referred as a female. Her name is Christine. She legally changed her name to Christine, so if I call her anything else, it would be factually wrong. And the name of the game of the comprehensive history is try to tell the truth to the best of my abilities.
Yeah.
And
No,
one of go on, Rose.
No, I can kind of understand where you're coming from with things like that. For myself though, I did a video on Chris myself. It was actually inspired by your series, where I looked at Chris's transition and whether or not I thought that like Chris is genuinely a trans woman, or like, 'cause I get that he's had documents that are within female name. It should be noted that he's currently in a male. Well, he was in a male jail. Now he's stuck in this kind of like America's mental health system. But he was in jail, at least as a male, because he hadn't had gender reassignment surgery, even though he's attempted to give it to himself. What I found to be kind of problematic from a lot of people, especially when it came out that he had raped his mother, or allegedly raped his mother.
Oh, for YouTube, let's avoid let's say RP. That's
okay. Let's just say the RP, the incident.
Violated.
Yes.
The incident. Yeah. So after we've seen things like not just like the incident, but other things in years prior where using the wrong pronouns is kind of considered to be like the ultimate crime and the ultimate like insult to Chris, when I think that he is someone who has had a very difficult upbringing. I don't think he's had particularly good parents. I think they've been incredibly neglectful of all of his problems. He's known to have very severe autism, and there is an arguable connection between like extreme autism or just autism in general and people coming out and identifying as trans. I also saw that there could potentially have been people who might have kind of convinced him that this might have been a good idea for him to transition. And I think that his massive obsession with trying to get a boyfriend-free girl is probably one of the things that kind of, I think he's more like deluded himself into that situation. I just find it very strange that of everything that he says that he is, like, he's a CPU goddess, he's Jesus Christ, he's the literal father/mother of Sarnachu. But when he says he's a woman, that's the literal thing that we have to, take into account.
I think that the inner world of CWC is quite, there's obviously a lot of derooting there when it came to the sexuality of CWC. I've left a number of comments actually on the comprehensive history about this sort of nature where you can, and as Geno, like you're a master of picking out things, by the way, that even me, who is like around the same time as you studied CWC, there's some stuff that nobody could ever remember, right? Unless you're going on the CC Sonichu website every day. But as you can see, there's little cracks here and there, especially in relation to Barb, which is interesting, which forms a very malfeasant sort of, I would even say, deviant sexuality within CWC in terms of the confusion, in terms of the relation to the purity that comes with a quote-unquote boyfriend-free girl, 18 and above, the sort of explicit, I would say, I mentioned this once, the sort of explicit clinicization of sexuality, in the sense that a lot of autistic people have this sort of like connection to high school and the sort of the sort of institutionalization of school, where CWC wanted this like sort of, what did he call it? Her sex class, where the teacher instructs
dating class. He wanted
dating class, where it's essentially a broachment of privacy and sexuality for the purpose of this sort of very authoritative institutional approach to sexuality that would benefit someone like CWC. But I want to hear your thoughts, but also want to hear Billy's thoughts, because Billy has done extensive work from another perspective on these topics of sexuality. But
well, for one, I don't know if this is a common opinion, but I think that Chris did a little better as Christine, and I kind of I feel like that could have been a as happy an ending as Chris is going to get. there was a period where he was, and I'm sure Geno is much more familiar with this, he was going out to the community of trans, and he was kind of going to clubs, and he was dancing and meeting people. And I think he was more comfortable in that persona of Christine for whatever reason. I mean, you could blame the trolls for him hating Chris, him hating classic Chris.
But even hating the world of men in general is a very strict, like a very, well, we can get into that, but I want Geno out of the floor, but Billy, finish and then.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that could have been a happy ending for him, but it's just interesting how he kind of fell off from attending those kind of like niche trans things, trans events. And I'm not quite sure why that happened, because it seemed like his life was going in a positive direction at that point.
Wasn't it around the time the idea guy started to get involved, when he really started to kind of go downhill, though?
Yeah.
Well, that was about like maybe 4 or 5 years before.
Well, Geno, what would you attribute to Chris Chan not going to these clubs anymore, and why is it that this place where there was this certain amount of comfort that didn't exist before, why was this eventually not something that ended up grounding Chris?
I'm pretty sure that like Marvin of the Kiwi Farms talked about it. Like basically, just Chris fell off. She got other interests, like for example, going to the End Games card game store and playing Pokemon over the weekends. I mean, she did socialize a lot. Just like whatever's on the quickie, it's like maybe 40%, even if that, of the entire truth or life about Christine. I mean, sometimes you don't know what she's up to, and she used to socialize a lot. Just she went to the clubs for a little bit, and then she went to the Pokemon game store or whatever, and then she went to the cinema with her friends as well. She did manage to make some friends herself. She socialized to a point. Yeah, but sometimes not everything is covered in the quickie.
There was a recent episode that I watched, and I'm still, I'm more than halfway through with the documentary. And first of all, is the documentary still going?
Yeah.
So, okay,
it's not going to be. It's going to be a news report instead of a.
So I'm up to the part where Chris was making a Facebook post about an incensed incident that occurred, and there was some excusing of this, saying that it's natural for these feelings, to be had, and I know that it's uncommon. So have you noticed even before that, though, certain signs that this horrible thing was going to transpire?
Everyone joked about it back then. No one thought it would ever happen. Like back in 2009 or 10 or so, Chris was having some trouble with his own ad site and like his own Sonichu site, and trolls making fake ads. And during one fake ad, someone made an illustration which was a parody of Chris's drawing, She Came for Quick, in which depicts Chris
that one
having fun with his former friend, and they replaced the former friend with Chris's mother. And Chris was very critical of all the ads that were up on his website at that time, except that one. He never mentioned it. I don't know what to make of it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I think the video from, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 2012 or 2013, where it's called, it was only a short clip, You're Always So Pretty, where him and Barb are eating. Yeah. And I think a lot of people point to that, and also point to, I think it was from a recent episode of Comprehensive History, where when Chris was Chris, not Christine, there was also another post that alluded to sort of unnatural, if not downright creepy, sort of fixations with Barb's appearance. And I think that, to me, I think that it's not... Leshbaum in the book Warhol Chris Chan goes into this a bit, the sort of Oedipalization of Chris. But in my opinion, I think it's more of not a... I think my theory cell take is that it's more of this feeling of wanting a wholeness within CWC rather than immediate physical attraction. It's just that as time goes on, Barb becomes basically everything to CWC. It becomes from the sort of the feminine archetypal perspective that Barb dominates CWC's life in such significant ways that the only natural conclusion is unfortunately the unspeakable. And
Is it similar in a way to this idea of the serial killer's obsession with their mother? There was that movie, obviously Psycho, that was made, and that was based off a real serial killer who also had certain connections with his mother. I'm trying to remember the name of that serial killer. But I don't know if there is some kind of a pathology there related to the mother or if it's something else. But in relation to this, maybe you could also give us your opinion of Chris's overall intelligence. Where
we'll
would you
move
say?
on from the mother thing, of course.
Well, why don't we start? I got to know Chris through your documentary, Geno. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was like so riveting, and I think it is totally awesome that it's so long and it's daunting at first, but it really hooks you. By the second or third episode, you need to see it through. I think it's great that it has like a range of emotions like within it where you're really on this journey with Chris, and sometimes you are laughing at him. It's almost like he says he couldn't have been scripted better at times than the stuff that just comes out of him naturally. That's just hilarious. But other times it's very, very sad. I think especially on my second rewatch, I couldn't watch the episode where his father dies. I skipped it because it hits so close to home. And he articulates the emotions of someone going through the death of a parent so lucidly and so clearly that I couldn't help but feel for him. So I mean, your documentary is unbelievable, and I'm not someone who would spend time laughing at someone on the internet. So I want to start by asking you, what do you think is special about Chris Chan?
That's a tough question.
That's almost unanswerable.
What are the components of what makes up Chris Chan? What are the components of Chris Chan's identity? Or even just personally to you, Geno, what attracted you to Chris beyond laughing at someone on the internet?
Yeah, all those 3 or so questions can be answered with like one answer. Basically, there's a lot of stuff happening in Chris Chan's life and the person that Chris Chan is, and I think that's what fascinates a lot of people is that you could like pick out a theme, a sort of topic, this sort of category, even if you will, about Chris Chan, and just make a 5-hour video on it, just like one specific thing, like Chris's treatment of religion, or Chris's treatment of reality, or Chris's treatment of gender. Obviously, Chris is so complex, and because Chris's life is so well documented, I think a lot of people can pick out these little moments, these little characteristics of Chris's life that they connect to personally. And a lot of people find the attraction that Chris is like an example of themselves if things went really wrong. Like there's this sort of point in your life where you made the change, where you got better, and Chris is the version of you that did not get better and just got only worse and worse. So just basically like a reminder of what not to do. Yeah. Do
you also think that it's due to the kind of influences that we have on the internet? For example, I was listening to this podcast series with Bill Maher being interviewed by Adam Carolla, and they talked about how back in the 70s when they were growing up, everybody was just playing outside. All the kids were bored. But it was because of not a cell phone in sight, and there was absolutely none of this helicopter parenting where first you had to go to karate class, then you had to go to French class, piano class. So that Adam Carolla attributes to his own creativity, because being bored gives you time to figure out very interesting ways of not being bored. But it's almost like when we have Pokemon, Sonic, when we have all these different influences, video games in our lives, it traps us, And in a way, I think it does stunt growth to a certain extent. I don't know if that's been your own observation. I mean, you're living in Japan, but you're not a big fan of anime, as we found out backstage. So what do you notice being in this culture that's also seemed to be absorbed by a lot of this media that other people create, as opposed to, let's say, like Satoshi Tajiri, who invented Pokemon? He didn't really play any of those video games. He collected bugs when he was a child. That was his Pokemon, and look what he made. So I'm curious where you stand on that.
Well, in Japan, for instance, I think a lot of people are very much absorbed into the media that Japan creates. Like, for example, Pokemon is huge, like for everybody, for all ages, be it students or teachers alike. And I almost kind of feel like some people in Japan, especially around maybe in their 20s or so, or younger, I feel like they are very much influenced by anime in terms of their behavior and the way that they respond to like people, and the way that they communicate, I think is very much exaggerated at points. Almost like they're trying to be an anime character.
Like otaku culture, you mean?
Even though they're not even otakus, even they're just enjoying whatever TV series or anime that they're watching, but it's just so ingrained into their culture at this point. It's a little concerning.
I think speaking to that issue, here in America, we see a lot of kind of personalities taken over by like what we call hyper socialization, or like people kind of taking on the mannerisms of like social media influencers, or people like kind of speaking in the kind of dialect or kind of inflection of a TikToker or something like that. And I feel like Chris's personality, it's fun watching your documentary because you could suss out what's coming from the cartoons he's watching and what's coming from the old-timey expressions of his parents.
Yes.
Like when Chris says something
very
like
weird
crestfallen,
world,
or Chris is lonesome, and you're like, well, that's coming straight from his dad.
Yeah.
And
Or things like Heart Sweet.
Heart Sweet, yes. Wants a sweetheart. And I just think, again, he's the exaggerated version of us. Like, we could think about how, to what extent does our personality come from outside sources, and more in particular, the media?
Well, I think another big appeal of Chris is that it's effectively a real life equivalent to the Truman Show. Like, this is someone, like this is someone's real life that's playing out almost on a weekly basis. You know, or what kind of misadventures is our hero going to get up to this time? There's at least at the start, and even kind of going on towards the end, there's always been this element of audience participation, where people have wanted to troll him, mostly now when they kind of become like, you know, weens or A-logs, where they're just, you know, they kind of want to become a character within his life, and it's now mostly met with failure. But there's still kind of that desire for people where they, even just watching him, it's like, and interacting with him is what gives them meaning as well. Like they want to be a part of Chris story. Like they want there to be people talking about them and articles written on them, because, you know, they are, like, a lot of people nowadays like internet fame. Like, it's something which seems relatively easy to get because anyone can really do it. And with someone who's already got an audience within the tens of thousands watching his every move, it's an easy way to you know, score some internet points, and then have everyone, you know, want to then follow you and see what you get up to. Again, like, it mostly fails, but I think that's not for myself, because I wouldn't want to contact Chris. I wouldn't want to have any engagement, because I think it's more entertaining to, you know, watch from afar. But I think for a lot of people, there's definitely going to be an appeal in that.
Well, it's the ultimate relational aesthetic if you're looking at it from Chris as a work of art. I mean, I think this is why Leshbaum chose Andy Warhol, because that's the ultimate. When you look at the history, you look at their relation to media, the synthesis of media, the sort of the viewing of film, and the use of everyday life as a source of aesthetic expression. from people interacting and like the image, the visage of Warhol. Also, Warhol's relationship to his mother. He was a deeply religious man. He was a celibate homosexual, and he took his mother to mass every day to the point where it was, kind of creepy. But also this engagement with the audience, I think there's only a logical conclusion there. But at the same time, I think that there's a reason why when it comes to the work of art, there's always like a sort of a clinicized and very like sterile separation between what is performance formativity and what is like, real life cinema verite. And I think like a lot of nowadays contemporary art is not exactly a source of vitality the way it was, but still, I mean, there's something about CWC that encapsulates, I would say, the sort of the perfect middle point, the way that Andy Warhol was in the 60s, by the way, the perfect middle point of our generation, or rather the sort of few generations that have had the both privilege and horror of growing up on the internet. There's something there that CWC is like the sort of the watershed between all of these different influences, and is the pure product, an aesthetic product of the internet. And
But does there come a certain moral obligation at a certain point to, let's say, people who have been following CWC for a while to not just be these detached observers, but actually do something to help the situation out? Like, I was pretty critical of not even the people who were the trolls, but the people within Chris Chan's community, like the people that Chris would see around church, because they must have known what was going on. They must have known the deterioration of the household, yet they didn't really do anything to help. So what do you think now now it's obviously, I think, it's too late in a way, but if we were to go back in time, would there have been any moral obligation on the people that were watching, even I'd say on yourself as the documentary maker, to not just be an observer, but to assist in some kind of way to making the situation better?
But there's been
But
people who
does
have done
Geno
that.
need to be null? Like, does Geno have to be null now? Like, we're trying to... Oh, sorry, Rosa. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to make that point. He's had, like, Chris has had Null looking after him for, well, looking over him at least, all the way up until the incident, and when it transpired that he was effectively stealing money from his mom when he cut all ties. So that there have been people within the trolling community, or the people watchers rather, who have tried to look out for him. I mean, one of the main reasons that the Idea guys were effectively taken down is because of the work on Kiwi farms. They want to enjoy kind of like the fruits of their labor, which is kind of the curating this like independent Chris, whilst also, not wanting to be completely irresponsible and literally try and destroy his life. Sorry.
But does this also have to do with what we consider to be Chris's level of intelligence? Like, what would you say, Geno, that question I asked earlier, what would you say is Chris's level of intelligence? At what point can you say if a person is just completely mentally not there, that it does cross the line, that at what point is a person still smart enough to be able to kind of take a certain amount of responsibility where it's a little bit more fair play?
Yeah, I wrestled with this question before, like just how smart is Chris? Some people would be very mean about this and say Chris is stupid. I don't know about that, but it does seem like when people have been trying to help Chris, Chris was very selective about what kind of information he was willing to accept and willing to believe. When people tried to point out, like for example, this online girlfriend of yours is actually a troll. It's a boy. Chris refused to believe that, and for many tries at like trying to get with a e-girlfriend, basically, Chris continues to fall for that, and it makes people question just how many times are you going to make the same mistake, So,
but is it possible that he knew, or like at least part of him knew, but he wanted to go on that ride of believing?
That's also an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. It sounds like he was just really selective of information that would be favorable to him. And if he's someone who's dealing with things like autism, or I know he hates the word Asperger's, but maybe that might be connected as well. One of the things that I know about people who have conditions like Asperger's, there's the way a lot of them will think is that they will kind of analyze the situation from their point of view. They will come to an answer, and therefore that answer is correct because they thought about it. So therefore that's the only answer. And trying to talk somebody around from that when they've already come to that conclusion, when they have that kind of mindset, is very hard to do. Of course, this all depends on exactly what kind of level of disability Chris has, as to whether or not that is what's going on. But it wouldn't surprise me, especially with his weird, or at least his used to be a weird aversion to Asperger's. Maybe there could be something like that. But also it would certainly explain his real fixations on very specific like truths, as it were.
But also the sort of sympathetic, to use a James Fraser term, like a sympathetic magic going there, where CWC will like put something in the frame, like the what poster was that when he had to do "I'm a Homo," that one, where he's like, "No, I'm actually straight," because this poster is in the background, or like the IV videos for Julie's Eyes Only. There's sort of
in the Homo one, he also had the Optimus Prime figure and the Sailor Moon with
that's
the
what it was.
in the background.
Yeah.
But again,
so
when I look at these things, though,
thinking there in terms of like another strange question I have, but I want Geno to answer the ethical question. In terms of Chris and religion, it seems that Christine has a very highly metaphysical thinking, and I would say even an occultic way. And we had streams actually. My good friend Saturday Night Sundown relating the occult and the glowies to CWC and this janky character.
Yeah.
But the one trend that CWC resisted in the 2000s was new atheism, which I find very fascinating. He at the time, Chris, didn't fall in around 2007, didn't like fall for Reddit shit tier atheism, but because there's such I would say a rich like inner mythology, which you'd find with various other folk arts. But no, Geno, please, what is your ethical responsibility as a documentarian? Should you be like Null, Joshua Moon, and help him out, her out, or do you feel that it would be a violation of what your project is to, like? Have you reached out to CWC?
Yeah, I would not help Chris. Basically, that's my stance. It's not just because I'm documenting Chris. It's just personally, just as a human, as a person living in Japan, just making videos online. I don't think I'm in any position to help Chris. I think personally. And Chris actually reached out to me in the past. I tried to keep my distance, but
in the comment sections too, as well.
In the comments as well, but I made one mistake one time when I was doing a live stream on my channel, and the background I used to have a virtual background back then. It was a picture, a still image of like the 2009 version of Christian's bathroom, which was incredibly grimy and filthy. And I also mentioned Christine's friend at that time was a woman friend who I commented did not look as good as Chris, and Chris took offense to that as well. And Chris kind of yelled at me over Twitter DMs, and so I think in fear of getting reported, I took down that stream. But beyond that point, Chris was kind of neutral to friendly with me. Which was nice. I got to talk with Christine. I got to talk with Magi-chan through Chris's body. That was the thing at the time. Maybe even Sonichu as well. So, yeah.
And does this
so
also
what kind
go
of
into?
Things would Magi-chan or Sonichu say to you?
Pretty much just whatever Magi-chan or Chris would say on Twitter, like just a 15 tweet string of whatever he's talking about at that time.
Geno, do you believe that he truly believes in the merge, or is it just something that he kind of, in his mind, wants to convince all the people around him to believe so he could kind of more fully believe it himself? He wants to believe it, but do you think he truly believes it?
I think Chris really wants to believe it. I think Chris is looking for like this magical source that will help Chris's life in a significant way. I think that's a large part of Chris's connection with religion. I think Chris was looking at religion as a sort of like a truth, like a dream granter, like wishing for something and hoping it comes true. Chris didn't find that in Jesus, and then Chris went to the CPU goddesses to ask for things to go well in her life. And Chris mentioned that through text while talking with one of the idea guys, is that like the CPU goddesses were willing to grant to Chris what Jesus never could, like
Oh
that.
my god.
Yeah, and then after the idea guys went away, Chris got in contact with Sockness, and that was a thing. Chris got in touch with like the occultist aspects and is trying to do some crazy magic with like candles and stars on the floor and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, since
Chris went beyond good and evil, Lev.
Oh yes. Well, since speaking of going beyond good and evil, since
the
you're
ultimate Nietzschean figures.
Well, since you're living in Japan now, Geno, one video that you did was about one of these Onis who has an eye in their asshole. And there's a very rich tradition of these various entities people would encounter in Japan, having to do with Shintoism, the idea that there is spiritual aspects to nature. With the nature, you would have various Onis, various entities of such. And do you think that there is something to the idea that there is consciousness out there, a spiritual world that we're not seeing, and maybe it involves certain projections of the mind, where if somebody believes in a Sonichu, believes in a Magichan, then like there was a comment from Massive McGee, I think, earlier on, talking about tulpas. Chris turned his characters into tulpas, and they drove him insane. You can't change my mind. So do you think that there is something to the idea that we inform the spiritual landscape, just like the spiritual landscape informs us, even to things that people would just, not even consider, like Saturday morning cartoon characters, fan characters, things of that nature?
Family Guy is real, Simpsons is real,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that the human mind is a very powerful thing, and you're able to make things come true just with your mind. You can convince yourself that these things are true, because there are things that you might feel in your daily life, like for example, you have this sense of intuition, you have this sort of deja vu feeling. Maybe people don't really understand what it is and trying to attach meaning to what these feelings might be. Chris was definitely like trying to get an answer out of the strange things that Chris was feeling. Like, for example, these feelings of deja vu. Chris thought that like she was going into a different dimension, or whenever like she was lucid dreaming, she really thought that she could actually travel through there. So I think Chris is like a good example of a more, maybe, how should I say, primitive mind. For example, maybe like Chris is not as socially adept, and Chris was kind of like raised in a cocoon almost. That Chris doesn't have really good social history, and Chris was kind of raised through just like interactions with his parents, and then through watching TV, and then through playing video games. And this is how Chris learned about the outside world and how people react and how people act with each other, and just try to copy that way instead of the more in real life interactions.
I think a big component of CWC's personality came from Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm.
I'm around the same age as Chris, so we grew up on the same cartoons. And those cartoons legally had to have a PSA. And the PSA was usually kind of centered around being a good person, being true and honest. And I think a lot of those talking points, and drug-free, of course.
Mm.
And I think a lot of those talking points came from those 80s cartoons PSAs. I think that's like where his, like, outside of religion, his sense of morality, at least in the beginning, at least in classic Chris, came from.
Well, it also, I think, came from his parents.
Weaponizes morality, or to an extent becomes, like, I'm only half joking with the Beyond Good and Evil thing. I mean that there's, I think, because of the unrelenting narcissism of CWC, there's also a very slippery relationship to moral actions. But at the same time, it is the word primitive is very interesting. Of course, it gets you canceled in academia now, you know. But it's true though, in that the sort of let's call it the animistic mind can't separate between what Jung called, and he got this when he went to Africa, the grand dream of a lot of different tribes, and in essence, they're living through the unconscious, which CWC is doing. There is no, like what Jung called, you know, conscious criticism there to separate between what is the ideation of a fantasy and what is the real.
I think this
the
is
real
also
becomes the fantasy.
Yeah. Well, I think this is also something that Rudolf Steiner was talking about in relation to the Legend of Atlantis, where, according to Steiner, the Atlanteans originally had more of this dreamlike mindset having to do with imagery, and later on, as people started to have more of this objective mindset, they were the ones who were able to wield the most power. And that also reminds me of an anecdote. I don't know if this is specifically about the Mayans or somewhere in South America, and I don't even know if this is true or not. Somebody could correct me, but it focuses on the conquistadors coming in and certain magic that may have worked on the other native people in the region did not work on the conquistadors because they were not in that same kind of mindset. And I wonder if there is sort of like a cargo cult situation going on with Chris Chan, where instead of having the animals, the various plant life, you know, like the jaguar and the ayahuasca ceremony, when you see the jaguar in that vision that you have because you're in the
now you
Peruvian
see
jungle.
Optimus Prime. Or...
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's kind of my point. Like, I don't really see it being as different if you could say that people who are in this dreamscape are in a way children, but they're children relative to this higher imaginatory power that they're privy to.
Just as an aside, I think my personal favorite panel of Sonichu is the one where he thinks one of his sweethearts died in a car crash of some kind.
Oh, yeah.
And he drew Optimus Prime, killing this woman that to him at least, was a real person. And I just feel like that one panel says so much about his whole mentality.
Also, bear in mind that with Chris, a lot of his biggest achievements in life are kind of connected to cartoons and video games. Like I think the single biggest achievement that he's ever had was winning the Sonic sweepstakes when he was about 9 years old.
Oh, that's what ruined
that was,
him.
and that would be a huge deal for a child, because not only have you won like one of the most coveted prizes that a kid could have, which is like a trolley dash around a toy store, but you're being interviewed on the news about it. So this isn't even just a big deal for you, as far as you're concerned as a little kid. This is a big deal for everyone, because they are going out of their way to talk to you about this.
I love how that contest also, in perfect Chris Chan fashion, was passive. It wasn't an art contest. He didn't have to do anything. It was watch and win. Exactly what he could do.
Yeah, but it was still a massive achievement.
Oh, absolutely.
And he would a lot of the things that he can attest, like his letters that have been printed in video game magazines. Like there was the review that he did of the DS dating game that I think was put into I don't know anything about American gaming magazines, but I know that it was printed in one of those. These are, if you have a look over his life as a whole, these are like his, outside of the actual kind of sphere of like Christery, like these are the real defining moments. Like he hasn't really had a job apart from when he worked at like Wendy's and when he bought a load of steak knives. Like so, like those are
Well,
those
he
are
has
the
the
two kind of.
tugboat.
He didn't like he graduated
Oh.
from high school, but he didn't get the praise that he seeked for his art. Unlike
well,
the
not
other
only
praises
that.
he's got just for providing the very bare basics.
Well, not only that, but in high school in the dance, there was I don't remember the exact controversy, but there was something that left Chris incredibly scarred, right? Something having to do with dating. I don't exactly remember what.
the
But
gal-
I
was,
believe it was graduation.
Oh,
where
graduation.
He wasn't given. He wanted to get some kind of special recognition that he overcame his autism, which obviously
Oh.
is not going to happen in a graduation ceremony.
Wasn't it to do with his art as well? Didn't he want specific recognition for his art?
Like for Sonichu?
Not
Maybe.
necessarily for Sonichu, but just his art in general. I'm sure
Didn't
that was
Sonichu
about-
originate
Yeah, it
from
was for
high
the art.
school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, and also keep in mind that there was something we skipped over here, which I think is also pretty significant. Before Sonic, before any of this video game stuff, there was the babysitter who locked Chris in the closet for a long time. So I don't know, like, how much that. I don't know, Gio, do you think like some kind of trauma like that would have an effect, or
Most
where
definitely.
could we point to and say, this is where it could have gone the other way?
It was that I think was a sort of a systemic break within CWC's psyche, but I think that the relation to Barb in particular being almost like you would say a longhouse mother type of figure of this sort of supreme authority over every aspect, and a lot of I know, not through no fault of their own, but a lot of mothers in particular of special needs children, it's like they have to take on a role of being within those initial stages of development with their child forever almost. But
but even worse here, the
Yeah.
parents of Chris Chan didn't want to believe it. They didn't take any steps to.
But those are the good. But those are the good ones though. With Barb, like there's incredibly irresponsible parents.
Can I just quickly butt in for a second? I just
Go
noticed
ahead,
in the
Rose.
chat, it looks like people are asking if I'm in a wheelchair for some reason.
What?
I'm not in a wheel. I can see someone
where are the
saying
handles?
like, Rose is in a wheelchair. I'm not in a wheelchair.
I'm not saying the handles. I don't know why
Where the
they're
hell is that come
talking
from?
about the wheelchair, unless they have like retractable handle or something. But anyway, I want to get to the art. So another question that Billy asked here is, what are your favorite scenes or panels from Sonichu? So if we treat Sonichu just as like this comic book, regardless of any of the instances of Chris Chan, well, first of all, can we? And second of all, what are some of your favorite things? Mine, just so you know, it's that hentai comic that Chris Chan did, the one with Rosa Chu's mouth, like the camera being inside of Rosa Chu's mouth, going into Sonichu's
Like the
penis.
perspective is-
That was actually the opposite. It was the camera inside Sonichu's member.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yes,
Yeah,
that's
the
even
nipple,
better.
yeah.
Yes, that's right.
The best was like the perspective angle on the Megan Schroeder ones, where it's like
My
Yeah.
very favorite one is one of the ones after Chris has come out is Christine. And he has a conversation with Blake where Blake says, "Begging your pardon, miss, but nice rack." And then Chris just sounds like, "Thanks, Blake, but don't get any ideas." And it's just that in this instance, it isn't even a drawing. It's literally, it's just a photo of him. And you can't see any breast in it at all. Like, so it's just...
I wanted to do
that's amazing for me.
on my
And
YouTube channel. I wanted to do a video reviewing CWC's like the more choice artworks, like the head one, because there is like, for what it's worth, a lot of relation to expressionism and surrealism. But like I feel nowadays it's like, I don't know. It's
But I wanna give the floor to Gino.
what
I'm
is this?
curious.
Pray
What
for
is?
Rosie's team wheelchair.
Yeah. It's gonna become standard
You're gonna
now,
have to
Rose.
get
There's
up
nothing you
just
can
to
do
prove
about
to
it.
Oh, she can't do it. See, she's in a wheelchair.
There we go. Perfect. So, okay, Gino, I want to give you the floor. You haven't had the chance to answer about the artwork yet. What is your favorite artwork of Chris Chan? Favorite comic series? What is the most engaging one for you personally?
Oh, there's a lot of good ones. Panel-wise, I think, this was, I think, in Sonichu issue 10, which is my favorite issue. is when Chris and the Chaotic Combo are performing a rock concert in front of the 4chan headquarters to make it, break apart. And Chris inserted pictures of himself into the comic, but his camera didn't capture his legs. So then Chris just like drew on the legs.
All right, I've got to see this.
But this is
You gotta
real
see this.
poker. This is Henry Darger like copying and pasting different characters from news clippings.
Yeah, so in a way, I think, like Gio talked about earlier, there is an outsider art aspect to Chris Chan's work. And the fact that it is so authentic, it's very different from, let's say, a lot of this copy-paste Tumblr art. Like, you could see a certain amount of, affection that's put into this, not just, it doesn't look like Chris Chan is doing this to impress somebody, to make somebody say, oh, this...
Put text in there, he had a weird way of scanning the sheets and then inserting text in. Like, how did he do that? I forget.
I've just got it in front of me. He grabs the Guitar Hero controller, snaps his fingers, and then he becomes like the photograph version, which is nowhere near as flattering as.
Wait, can you DM it to me? I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yes.
I mean, I love that Chris couldn't, from issue 1, from the cover of issue 1, he couldn't resist self-inserting. You would think maybe he would try to do a straight-up Sonichu comic, at least the first few issues, but from the very beginning, it was a self-insert fantasy, and I find that just absolutely fascinating. And this was, I think, 2004 he was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the picture, by the way.
What?
As he snaps his fingers, he goes from he's got the cool shades on to.
And then I believe in the next page, Chris apologizes for not wearing the same shirt as his drawings because it was in the wash.
This is postmodern art before postmodernism. Like breaking the wall that way, and like just having like purposefully done motifs and serial work. Like, oh my god,
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But do you think that people are going to, I know that there was that book that Gio mentioned, but do you think more people can, through the power of your documentary, start to incorporate some of these things into highbrow culture? I think it kind of needs it personally, but do you think that there's a chance, or are we just relegated to this internet landscape to have this experience and it'll never go into the intellectual sphere?
I think it will. I think I can fairly confidently say, within maybe 90% confidence, is that within the next 5 years, I think someone will make something in the mainstream. Probably it's going to be more like a documentary feature. I know this because I was contacted 3 times already by people up high in the industry. There's definitely interest in making something. They're really not quite sure how to make it, because with such a complicated subject as Chris, you need to simplify it, and you need a unifying theme crossing Chris's life. So that's what they're looking for. I can't guarantee if I'll be involved with any such project, though I'm trying. I'm still in talks, actually.
Well, there was a dream that I had last night, which I don't know if you read, but I dreamt that I was on stage interviewing David Mamet, the famous writer David Mamet, about the Chris Chan movie that he wrote. So,
Oh god.
this is
Geno,
a real...
David Mamet back from the dead, just like.
No, well, he's alive. What do you mean back from the
he's
dead?
still alive?
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast a while back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope for your sake that you are able to, make something mainstream, cash in and get all the recognition you deserve for this massive project you've been undertaking. But I just wonder, to what extent is Chris Chan kind of mainstream resistant? And I know that his art was always, the joke was that he's like kind of punk rock because he could never be mainstream. But Chris wanted, the only reason Chris is doing comics is because he couldn't himself make a movie. He couldn't himself make a video game. The only thing Chris could do was make comics. So his Sonichu was always resistant to the mainstream. But in the sense of telling his story, I can't see how you could do it justice in 2 hours even. So do you think that, is there a way to even translate his story to mainstream documentary?
There is a way, though I don't think it's going to be as good, as what we might feel it should be. We're always going to be leaving out stuff. We're always going to be focusing too much on whatever thing just to get the message of the movie, of the documentary across. Yeah, that's interesting about Sonichu, the comics, because Chris always referred to the chapters of the comics as episodes, because Chris envisioned it like the Sonic the Hedgehog 80s cartoon series,
Right.
80s.
Yeah.
No, you mean early 90s.
It was probably
Early 90s,
Yeah.
right?
So I don't want to be a snob here. See, the thing is, I was a really big Sonic fan growing up. I saw the Saturday morning cartoon, the one with Sally Acorn, and I played all the games, even the horrible Sonic R game. Although I think Sonic 3D Blast was the first game that I played for the Sega Saturn. So, like we said before, it does capture you, and there's always a feeling of, should I have spent that time outside instead of playing these games? And what do these games really teach us? Like, do you think that if you observe Chris Chan and the influence that it's had in him, and like you said, there's a little bit of a Chris Chan in all of us as far as we kind of see these influences having creeped in, do you think that Gen Z and the generations afterwards who grew up with an iPad, that it's going to be even that much more like Chris Chan? It's going to be that much more infected with just all these pop culture things that we're not even going to recognize what the subsequent generations are going to be like, that they're just going to be so messed up, or maybe not.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot more like Chris, you might say, because Chris definitely was a victim of not the best parenting. I can definitely imagine that Chris's parents were not willing to treat Chris with the necessary attention that Chris really needed. They were obviously way too old for this, and they were not prepared to have a child with learning difficulties. So they definitely, I think, went to pass over the parenting over to maybe video games and TV shows, which I think is happening a lot nowadays as well. Like just passing a baby and an iPad, which is, frankly, I really disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the
But
same
also
time,
notice that the hoarding of Barb, it's like Chris Chan is a cultural hoarder, but Barb is a physical hoarder. So it seems that the act of hoarding, like in this in Leshbaum's book, he says that CWC resists nostalgia the way that Andy Warhol was eternally contemporary, in that there is no sort of conscious, the way it is with us millennials, right? There's no conscious understanding of a homesickness for a place that may or may not have existed.
Well, he also never left.
He never. That's the point.
There was never a period where
never
he didn't
left
like these things.
Because no, but when franchises end, it goes into the dimensional merge. It goes into some other plane. So there is no nostalgia. CWC resists that nostalgic impulse because it's still real, right? So I wonder if but then I mean, when it comes to the parenting, I mean, they both didn't Barb, was it Barb that cheated on her ex, or how did that?
Well, that's why Chris's brother, who's apparently sitting in Manhattan and burning. What was that place that he's supposed to reside in?
Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall. Thank you. So he's sitting in Carnegie Hall. There's like a fire pit. He's just throwing money. No, but what was the story behind that? Just so we're refreshed, the story behind Barb and the brother and all that.
Chris's parents have both had marriages and children before Chris, and they all seemingly cut contact with them prior to Chris being born, which is, I mean, we don't really know the full story behind that, but apparently, all their kids apparently hate them. So we really don't know why. But apparently, Barbara tried to get with her sister's husband. I believe that's the story. And then and then
Wow.
Chris's half brother says that possibly Barb shot a gun and the bullet ricocheted and almost killed him or something.
Oh, my-
Really don't know.
yeah.
You know.
yeah, yeah.
Also,
immense
apparently there was there's a very recent lore unearthed, in which Chris's brother confessed. It was like 2 years ago, over on a Facebook post, that Cole, Chris's brother, and Barb's husband at the time, who was not Cole's father, they were part of a traveling magic act. And
Wow.
they used to perform for mental institutions, and they like
Oh
met
my
with
god.
and they
That's
used to
the
meet with the
Julian
mayor or
Assange's
something.
history.
Wow, imagine
Yeah.
touring the country or even like the States with your mum and a man who isn't your dad, and you're performing in mental institutions as a kid.
Yeah. That's very
Like-
similar to Julian Assange's background, by the way, how he had to flee from his biological father, and they were part of this traveling circus that was also a cult or something like that. Like it
Wow.
was, yeah.
It's very
But when it-
strange
I
to
knew a
think
guy
about that.
in high school who actually ran away to join the circus, and this is in like the UK in like the year 2005, 2006. And I was surprised that this was even a thing. I thought it was
Still-
something from cartoons.
Well,
But
but
no,
also,
he ran
like-
off to join the circus and became a juggler. It was
But
weird
what's
as hell.
interesting about Bob, though, is that, like, Billy, you alluded to that, and Rose, you were saying, like, joining the circus is another, like, weird crossing of timelines of, like, this old-timey reality. Look at, for example, CWC's influences from Bob in terms of politics. Like,
Oh,
on the one end, it's almost he's kind of, like, woke on the racial, well, in these circles, but, like, let's say he's racist or whatever. But he's like a Morgenthau liberal, where he's like, well, he likes the UN, and he's like, you know, an internationalist, but he's like a racialist at the same time. It's really,
Well, I mean,
like,
to what
yeah.
extent does he like what he's told to like on television? You know, like explicitly.
Yeah.
But that wasn't television. That was Bob's influences. And another thing that you notice with Bob, especially in that encounter in the mall, like this was before the Pickle Man, where
He
he had that
charmed
girl.
the woman
Yeah.
away from. Oh,
No,
my
Bob's a
God.
very charming guy. And it
the
also,
pickle.
yeah, and it also, in a way, speaks, I think, to an idea that there may be some kind of a cultural loss where in the nifty 50s, you may have had sort of like this charm that guys had to develop with the gals, and now, you know, it's not really the case anymore. And that girl may have been even stunned by, man, like this old guy, he's just like incredibly charming, but that may have meant that work must have been put into it. Like Bob must have put into a lot of work into knowing exactly the right things to say, how they say it. And that's kind of another, I don't want to be black-pilled here at all, but that's another thing that people may be looking back on, like having this
Well, Billy,
old
this
school
is your forte in this area.
yeah, having like this old school generation of people who, you know, knew how to, like in that cigarette commercial, in that Marlboro commercial, I can, you know, assemble my car and disassemble it, and, you know, say, well, do you smoke while doing it? It's of course, you know, Marlboro is my brand of cigarettes. Anyway,
The
you know,
manosphere would say that Bob maintained frame throughout.
yeah.
Like, there's always something tragic about Bob. Well, for me, one of the things that's always stood out is the what did they call it? The garage where they were. Is it like the
Dreaming Studio.
the dreaming studio?
Dreaming
That's
studio.
it.
Oh.
For big C, like for big C and little C. Is where dreams come true.
I think
and stuff.
for anyone
and like that for
who-
me is really tragic.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
one
for
of the
anyone
saddest
who could
parts.
relate, and I'm sure all of us to some extent could relate to letting our parents down, at least in some way, maybe a small way.
Oh yeah.
That really hits home. The Dreaming Studio just hurts, man.
Yeah,
But what-
that for me actually makes me kind of.
Well, but
But,
you know,
wait,
what was
wait,
your
wait,
opinion
wait.
on Bob though in general though? Do you think that Bob was more of a responsible figure in Chris's life, or he had his pitfalls on him, obviously? And the way he died was so tragic as well, being eaten by bed bugs. And,
Oh God.
yeah.
Bob was definitely more responsible, though. I mean, when your competition is Barb, it's not that difficult to win. Yeah, but
Oh, he was
yeah,
definitely more.
I mean, Bob was kind of a product of his time. You know, he had some some controversial opinions concerning, someone's quote unquote black ass. He would say something like that. So
Oh yeah.
I mean,
But yet he was like an
But-
old school, like American internationalist, which is like,
yeah, and
Yeah,
and
kind
he loved,
of like me.
I love the UN and
he loved the
yeah,
UN.
but, but you don't
he
score
loved
as many
jazz
race
music,
points. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean he was quite cultured. He
Yeah.
loved jazz music. He had 10,000 records. He was actually part of a Korean church.
Oh wow,
Locally.
really?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
so
so
that means that he's not racist then, right? Because there
He's-
was the Korean War, so well, I
I
guess
mean,
he's
but-
selectively
Racialist,
racist.
there's a difference.
He's selective, I guess. I don't know.
Collective, yeah.
Also, wasn't Bob the one who like lived with Chris when he went to that different school?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Was it like
yes, that's
it-
true.
yeah? Whereas Bob was the one who stayed at home.
Yeah,
So and there was also there were weird things that he would really kind of try and show support for his son on, like the name change with the bear. Like, he became very much convinced that, well, if Chris believes that the bear is is giving him a new name, that is a message from God, and that was what was put in the newspaper.
God and the bear.
Yeah,
God
like there
and
were,
the
there, were,
bear.
there were lots
Yeah.
of. I think there were like Bob, especially as time went on, he was very much showing his age. But if he had Chris at a younger age, and if he had a wife that was more responsible than Bob, Chris would have probably stood more of a chance. Like, I know that he would never win Father of the Year award. I know that Bob won Mother of the Year in 2000, which she never won again. But he's never kind of come across as more of a villain in Chris's life than Bob, which is a weird thing to say, knowing how things have played out. Bob is the one who's come across as the more lazy one, the much more neglectful one. Like the whole idea of her no longer cooking for Chris since he turned down a spaghetti dinner, which may or may not have been absolutely terrible. Like Bob is the one who kind of comes across as a lot more manipulative, and the one who I think has maybe neglected Chris in so many ways that after Bob died, they do seem to have become a lot more closer. It seems to be after Bob
that's kind of a
away,
bad
that
way
we
of
hear about
phrasing
them
it, but-
being out in public, holding hands with arms around each other, and maybe that could kind of be how things led to the way they are. Bob was looking for more kind of support, and finally kind of showed it to her son. At which point he was already Chris Chan, so it's too late to kind of do anything then. So I would always give Bob specifically like a little bit of leeway. Yes, he had questionable views on race and homosexuality, but I don't think he was specific based on what we know, because I know that Cole says he's a disgusting man, or said he was a disgusting man. I just, I don't think that he is as bad as Bob was.
No.
Interesting.
I think he just didn't know probably how to deal with a son like that.
But
probably not. A lot of parents don't. A lot of parents don't. But of course, there's still failures on his part for not doing it. But then it also sounds like there might have been problems with the local county, which wouldn't surprise me for for a child with a condition like Chris. Like even in places like the UK, there are plenty of kids with learning disabilities, with like autism or Asperger's, who are regularly let down by the system.
They grew up in council flats and.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably not as messed up as Chris, because I think Chris has just been failed by everyone in his life, including himself. But yeah, that's kind of where it comes from.
But for somebody like Chris, do you think that there would have been any chance, if the legal system worked differently, to actually have him be brought into the mental home much earlier, where the tragedies that we know of could have been avoided?
Do you mean for me to answer that?
Or Geno,
Geno,
or
Rose,
you.
It's difficult to really say, because I think in America you need to be like kind of very, very specifically vulnerable before the system will actually step in.
Yeah.
And as vulnerable as both Chris and Barb are, I don't believe they meet that threshold. They're able to look after themselves technically. They are, I mean, they have survived by eating and like
Eating very poorly, but
eating very poorly for years. But that in itself doesn't mean that someone would
All right,
need to be sectioned.
but taking a cut, making a incision in your taint because you think that there's going to be a vagina under
which is
there.
an incredibly dumb thing to do, but that still wouldn't meet any kind of barrier of like kind of legal incompetence in someone. You would need that. I think that even now with the assault on his mother, Chris understands that what he did was wrong, and something like that would effectively stop an insanity plea. Because he's still aware of a lot of what he is doing. He's just Christian, and it's difficult to see what the state could have done earlier, especially when they live such secluded lives, when there aren't a lot of people who are close to them, they're basically like, disowned by their wider family. They don't have any friends. The only people who seem to check in on them are internet trolls, who the police would hear a lot from anyway. And so I just don't see how this could have any way reasonably, based on what we know, that this could have been prevented. But now Chris is actually in the system. That is kind of concerning, because I know that American systems, people do get lost in them.
Yes.
And I've heard some horrifying things about people who, like, one story which will always stick with me is, I believe might have been in the 70s, there was this girl who had basically lived her entire life tied up to a chair. Her father was incredibly abusive, assaulted her brother, and she couldn't actually speak English. She'd never learned to speak English, and she was rescued and put into care, where they started to make quite a bit of progress with her. She couldn't speak, but she could start to understand things, and she kind of became happy. But then something happened where she needed to be moved to another facility, and then nobody ever heard from her again. And the only
they call
things
it
that
feral child syndrome, if I recall.
Jeannie, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, Jeannie. It's an incredibly sad story, and it has an as far as anyone knows now, she's still alive. She's still in the system, but it sounds like she basically just, all she ever does is just sit on a chair, and that's all she's capable of doing.
Well, would you be able to find Jeannie? Because when you say that she got lost in the system, does that imply that if somebody wants to track her down or transfer her, it's impossible?
People have tried. People have tried for decades.
Wow. I would have assumed with the bureaucracy, there would have been paperwork. There would have been some kind of a way of finding out who is where.
I think it's something to do with like confidentiality or whatever. Only certain people can know. Yeah. And so if you don't have contacts with them particular people, or if even the right paperwork isn't done, somebody can effectively just get lost in there forever. And that is terrifying.
Well, Geno,
the question, do you think there could have been a point where someone could have intervened? I personally think that if he would have... Sorry, Lev, sorry.
No, it's funny. I was going to say the exact same question. So there we go. Perfect.
I think people have tried to intervene, but
Rocky Shoemaker,
like Rocky Shoemaker, for example, yes. But it does seem like Chris and the Chandlers as a whole are not disadvantaged enough to be, taken away and for the government to step in some capacity. Like, for example, when trolls notified the local government about the video of Chris's house tour and how cluttered it was and how
yes,
Barbara's party was so terrible. Video. Yeah, that basically the local council said that as long as the family is keeping this within their own household, then it's not a problem for us, basically. Beyond that, there was another event. I can't remember now. Damn it! I had it on the tip of my tongue.
It was
anyway.
Not the fire, but it was something. I know what you're referring to. There was another where the state had to get Yeah. There was
Oh, that's it. No, during the Idea Guy saga, when Chris was basically extorted out of like $6,000,
Yes. Yes.
Null went to the Greene County sheriff and to tell him about this event, and basically the sheriff said that whatever Chris does with her money is her own business. So, and then never went ahead.
That's pretty bad.
What do you think of? Do you think that Null has done his best to help CWC, or do you have your criticisms? I know you have some criticisms of Kiwi Farms, the channelologist, but do you have what is your relationship with Null like? If you don't mind me asking.
I've spoken with Null briefly during the kill stream, actually.
Oh
That
God! Oh, and by the
was-
way, Null is absolutely eviscerating Ethan Rupp. Oh, sorry, that's my own personal. Go ahead. Go ahead. I hate you, fucking Null. You ruined my life with the Karen farm. Sorry.
So I have a question for Geno, kind of building off of this.
Yeah.
This is what I consider like the central question that at least I turn around. I think about a lot. Do you think that Chris's life would have been better had none of the trolling happened? And I think that's like I don't want to like kind of. I think there seems to be a simple answer to it, but I'm not quite convinced of that. So I just asking you, what do you think?
Yes. The life that Chris would have led without the trolls would have been, I guess, more calm, you might say. I think the attention that Chris got from the trolls, I think inflated his ego. I think Chris got this idea that he was famous and that he had to be respected in a sort of way. He felt like maybe he had more power, and he decided to lash out against, like, for example, the GameStop employee with Mace. Maybe she might not have done that if it wasn't for the trolls, but on the other hand, without the trolls, Chris wouldn't have been making money off of Sonichu at all, I think.
And
So
that's
it's a difficult
the thing.
one.
I mean, I
The
think of
other
Chris. I think of
Rob,
Chris.
Oh, go ahead, Billy. Go ahead.
I think of Chris without the trolls as living a kind of lonely life, maybe in a group home if his parents had done the right thing, or if they're incapable of doing the right thing, just in his room collecting his tugboat and not really interacting with too many people. And I think that the trolls, though it was painful quite often for Chris, the moments before the pain, he definitely he got to experience feelings of love multiple times. He had an outlet, which maybe wasn't his preference, but he had an outlet for sexuality through.
But there were simulations, Billy. There were simulations. They weren't.
But I mean, but could Chris have had any better had that not? I mean, I don't think so. I think
he has an audience of thousands as well. Don't forget.
Well,
he's someone who always craved the idea that recognition.
And I think we could all kind of relate to that too.
Well, Gio, he can't just become a priest. That's the other thing. Like, I don't expect Chris Chan to become a priest or a monk. So that's another interesting question. As far as the hentai comic that I mentioned earlier, I imagine that Chris Chan did have influence from the various, cartoon pornography that was around the internet. So what do you think that all contributed to how Chris viewed sexuality? Do you think it had barely anything to do with it and it was just something on the side? So I'm curious, Geno, what your thoughts are on the whole sexual side of it.
Sexual side of what?
The sexual side of Chris Chan, the influences that he would have gotten from hentai and things of that nature.
Was he secretly at least bisexual the whole time?
Difficult.
I don't think so.
No, he hated men. He hated penises.
Yeah.
This is what I said, though. He hated
Jenkins...
the world of men. He obviously had. That's why the male lesbian thing came about, because you need I think that's where his homophobia initially came from. It wasn't that he was doing it out of some kind of like edginess or like traditionalism. It was more so that to him homosexuality, it's not equated, which historically homophobia was equated with, being effeminate. Instead, to him, it was ultra masculinity. It was like the Jack Donovan version of
Yes.
homosexuality, right? It was like
Okay.
ultra vril, like men fucking other men. That was like to him the ultimate sort of expression of power.
As it
in
was
sadomasochism.
as it was to your ancestors, Geo, the ancient Romans.
What do you mean? You're talking about the okay? Listen, technically the Greeks, because I'm
no. Here's the difference.
The Greek side of Italy.
Well,
so
the Greeks and Romans, best of both worlds, because the
Did
Greeks,
the
as far
Romans
as
have-
here's what the Romans did. The
animal-
Romans were actually the ones who had butt sex, while the Greeks were the ones who had more of this platonic relationship to like the younger and the older. But the other thing that I learned about the Romans, and hopefully we're gonna have a guest on soon who's gonna talk about this. Everybody subscribe, by the way. So what I learned about the Romans.
This could be a lib psyop, Lev.
What I learned about the Romans, Geo, was that the Romans, if you were a Roman citizen, you can only be the giver, and the receiver had to be a non-Roman citizen, so like a slave or a founder. And the other difference is that the Greeks, they use the thighs, but the Romans, they went in the booty all the way. Yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah, exactly. So there we go. That's the difference. But anyway.
But we cut Geno off.
Back to Geno. Yes.
But not just. Let's get away from the sexuality. The romance part and his conception of romance as well. I'm very curious in your research, how he came about his ideas and so forth. Yeah. Sorry, him, her. I'm sorry.
Sure. I think Chris was heavily influenced by the movies, by the media of that time that was very sexually oriented. About getting with the prom date or whatever, like American Pie, for example. I think it's very sexually driven stuff, and concerning his homosexuality, bisexuality, Chris said that he was tempted, by the male form, and Chris would look away after a moment of being shocked. So I'm not sure whether Chris was actually tempted in any sort of way. Was he trying to hide his feelings? Because I imagine that Bob and Barb's homophobic influences were very heavy in the household. So I don't know if Chris was just trying to conceal that or not. But in the grand scheme of things, Chris was never really that interested in males, really, up until the Idea Guys convinced her. So probably not bisexual. Yeah.
Wait, what did the Idea Guys do, just for those who are not in the know?
The Idea Guys managed to convince Chris that they were all these various cartoon characters communicating interdimensionally with Christine through role-playing on Discord, and just basically saying, "Hi, I'm Magic-chan," basically like that, very, very consistently and constantly. And through this, they managed to convince Chris that she actually believed that she could travel to Quickville in some sort of way, that all her Sonic and Rose Chews were real, and that she was married to a 15-year-old Rose Chew named Crizzle and stuff like that, and married to Magic-chan as well. So I think the Idea Guys were using these strange ideas, like for example the interdimensional marriages, to make Chris look foolish, just to convince Chris that she was bisexual. But soon after the Idea Guys, lots of their influence waned, though some persisted. For example, the concept of the dimensional merge was still very much alive, and Chris, for the most part, I think, rejected the idea of bisexuality. So
interesting.
I found that Chris always sticks to what she really believes in and what she really wants to do. Like, for example, if she's goaded into doing something that she doesn't really want to do, like she's gonna stop. Like if she's trying to come up with a scheme to get the ladies and it doesn't work, Chris is gonna stop. Chris is not very good at keeping up lies, I think.
But do you think that there have been moments where CWC obviously has crossed the line and obviously has done real world damage, especially towards love interests? I mean, the Megan Schroeder thing goes without saying. But do you think that, is there moral responsibility there, or is it just the product of the trolls and the A-logs egging CWC on? I mean, the Megan stuff in particular was
Mhm.
quite interesting. But then you have like Blue Spike, for instance. I mean, that was
Hmm.
horrific. Right? That was
Horrible.
torture almost. But
Almost. That was torture. I mean, if you have somebody
Well-
inserting an object into their butt, like that's torture.
But is there not a responsibility that this is literally, you know, a 14-year-old kid, and shouldn't CWC just turn the camera off or not engage? I mean, I know the PlayStation Network was such an important thing, but like,
My
I don't
outside
know.
opinion. Can I be like an outsider here?
Go for
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
I think that Chris is like, he was so thirsty for sexuality that I think any sexual attention was in a way wanted, and I think that he probably enjoyed sticking that up his ass for an audience. And I think he only needed
Maybe.
to and be encouraged to do it.
That reminds me, because Chris did even before that have a history of sticking things up his butt. So
Yeah.
You know, this is exactly how I thought I
Yeah.
would spend my early 40s, just discussing an autistic adult sticking things up his butt.
But I think that there's a lesson here, though, because
Yeah.
in a way, I think a lot of the things that we're supposed to revere in today's culture, when it comes to things that are being taught in colleges today, when it even comes to the level of discourse, you know, the kind of people that we have as president, the kind of people that we have to look up to, it almost seems like Chris Chan and focusing on the various escapades and the dimensional merge and all these memes, there's something about that is almost like a fuck you to the system. It's almost like to show that the system around us, the way that people conduct themselves, has gotten so low that we might as well just talk about this Chris Chan character and might as well introduce people to what was the name of a Mary Lee Walsh, for example, you know, just, you know, because I do enjoy it. We had I don't know if you know this, Geno, but we had the great comedian Tony Hinchcliffe of Kill Tony on Break the Rules. This was about a year and a half ago, and I told him about Chris Chan, and his face was just, you know, like numb from what exactly, you know, it was a total info hazard. But there is something about breaking that wall down and introducing people to characters like Mary Lee Walsh and all that I think, you know, I don't know why it's so attractive. Why do you think it is? Why do you think, at least for me, there's something attractive about telling people all these intricacies between these Saturday morning cartoon relics inside of the head of this Chris Chan character?
What keeps us fascinated?
Yes, what keeps
Yeah.
us fascinated?
it's almost too crazy to believe that this is actually true. I mean,
Yeah.
the way you're talking about Mary Lee Walsh, like you said, a character. I mean, she's a real person. We sometimes forget that these are real people and this is a life and this is not a TV show, which is
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Really good point.
But especially with Mary Lee Walsh, you had somebody who looks just like this gentle old lady who was then transformed into this cartoon witch, badly drawn, who was then transformed a third time into
You're
this
hot.
overly sexual,
Yeah.
sort of like Rouge the Bad like character. And I don't know, there's something really fascinating about thinking about somebody going to Mary Lee Walsh and showing her that illustration of the final version of her and just letting her...
But the thing is, it's almost like we're reenacting what Chris did. I mean, the whole the who was the cabal that tried to troll him? When Chris was a him, the
Miscreants.
the miscreants.
miscreants, and he went to Ohio. Was it?
Yep.
Like he drove there to pursue a boyfriend for a girl.
And he has fond memories of that. It should be pointed out. He that was an adventure for him, and he
That's
still.
I think that's the furthest he'd ever been from his home state.
I think
If I
That's
remember
true.
rightly.
And without the trolls, he probably would never have left Virginia.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. I think Chris went to California. I think once to visit Cole, but that's
Oh, did he?
apart
okay.
from that, yeah. By himself, yes, that's a big achievement. I think that's like one of the four greatest moments of a Chris's life. Like Chris once made a video of like, I mean, it was about something around Liquid Chris around that time, and Chris said there's like four goals in life. So Chris achieved like 3 of those goals. Like, for example, playing the lottery, going to Ohio, had a few drinks, and then number 4 is the Virgin Breaker, which
Yes,
didn't
Mia
happen back
Hamm.
I love how
Man.
like playing the lottery. So not even actually winning, just
Play.
buying a ticket. Just buying a ticket.
Give it a try.
Buy a
love it.
ticket. Go to Ohio.
So,
Have a
so
drink.
CWC is no longer a virgin, right? There's some
Well, no,
sex
he's-
worker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
well,
prostitute
Mia
years
Hamm.
ago.
Yes.
I can't remember it.
Oh my god!
Twice, I think.
Oh man, but it is again very interesting to one day imagine there being not even a Chris Chan thing, but like some giant inflatable furry vor statue in the middle of Times Square, just having this culture completely enter into the world of all these people. But anyways, there is another question that Billy had over here in the thread. Let me see if I could find it. But before that, I wanted to say to everybody, be sure to subscribe, add a like. The likes are of an incredible assistance to the algorithm.
Almost
And
at 10K
yes.
too.
And if you want to support BTR, if you guys are new to what exactly this is, Break the Rules combines all the different... It is kind of like a dimensional merge. It combines both the anonymous internet people together with various experts in their fields, with various people in real life, so we can see, where are some biases that people have on both sides and be able to maybe come to an agreement or at least understand each other. So the other questions that we have here, let's see the ones that we covered. So what is your prediction for the future of Chris Chan? So that is the final question that we have over here, and take it away, Geno.
You can't predict that, man. Yeah, I think I was asked something similar back when I just had 100K, and yeah, I had no idea what would happen with Chris's life. There's lots of uncertainties at this moment. Like, for example, how's Barb? How's the house? Like, is Chris ever going to get out? These are all questions that I can't answer properly. I'm just interested in the truth. I'm not a predictor in any sort of sense. I think.
Well, then, as
yeah.
far as Geno Samuel goes, what predictions can we make in the life of Geno Samuel? Because I know you're going to have a documentary coming up about Antarctica, but in general, where do you want to take your musical career and your documentarian career? Do you want to go through the festival circuit? Where exactly do you see Geno Samuel in 10 years from now?
If everything goes well, I hope I'll be involved in some sort of Chris Chan project in the mainstream, maybe Netflix or HBO or some other streaming site. Maybe, I'm not sure. So that's one avenue. I have another avenue, which is of course my documentary work outside of Chris Chan, which I think is getting a bit more attention every day. Like, I'm working on the Antarctica documentary for about 8 months now, which is terrible because I just want to get it out as soon as possible, but I'm busy with Christian at the moment. Music wise, I'm actually involved with talks with this guy over here, who is the guitarist of one of my favorite bands in Japan called Off Course, and he's very interested in producing an album with me.
Oh wow.
So there's lots of opportunities, nothing certain yet, but I'm glad that there are opportunities, there are chances, there's things happening all the time.
And how do you find living in Japan in general? What is that whole experience like?
It's quite clean, quite orderly. I think it's a very convenient life, even though the crowded trains suck a lot. I mean, it's just nice. I'm kind of an urban hermit. I don't really get involved with a wider society, really. I just sit in my room making my music and videos.
So it's kind of like that movie Lost in Translation. Is it a similar situation?
Oh God,
or like the Bill Murray character? I don't know. But I've always been fascinated by Japan and how it operates. Do you notice that there is a hive mind in terms of the culture where everybody's just thinking about not just the individual, but like how the whole is functioning? Or would you say that's an exaggeration?
No, that's definitely true. There's this understanding in Japan that you do as little as possible to disturb the peace, to make people uncomfortable. That's why everyone here still wears masks, even though it's not in the law. No one is demanding you to do that. They're just doing it out of courtesy, basically. Yeah, and people very, very, very rarely get into arguments, at least in public. And they reserve their personal feelings for when they get back home. Yeah.
Do you also notice in the internet culture of Japan? I don't know if you take part in that or not, because I know you have a Japanese channel, Geno Samuel. What was it, Geno Samuel Japan? Do you notice, for example, like the progenitor of 4chan, 2channel, that there is a particular internet culture there? How different would you say something like that is to 4chan and the internet culture in the U.S.?
I'm not that involved with 2chan or anything like that, but I did read stories about just how incredibly, so they're so incredibly very determined in the targeting of individuals. Like there was this one case about this lawyer, I believe.
Yeah, the lawyer. Yeah, the eye
You know,
thing.
you know that story?
Yeah.
No, what happened with the lawyer?
I think can Gio explain?
They for some odd reason he was involved. It's been a while since I watched. I think it was either like Expo or someone. Like he was involved in some lawsuit, and they started like targeting him and doxing him, and they put these like eye symbols around his law office, and it was like this really big like happening, like kind of on the level of like a 4chan. He will not divide us, only for like one individual. Well, I guess
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf is an individual, not really. Well, his subjectivity's been ruined by Hollywood, but you know what I mean. Like this lawyer, this random lawyer, kind of like the Something Awful thing with the waterworks place, like in some random county in California. They would like, observe them. I forget do you know the exact specifics of it? It's been a while since
I was hoping you would have the specifics.
He was involved in some lawsuit. I have to look it up, but it's if you look
yeah.
up 2chan, it's like one of the top stories. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're quite vindictive in their targeting. It's a I guess it's kind of a similar situation to the kind of similar level to the kind of attention that Drakenlord was receiving. Yeah, this is sort of mass targeting and stalking and online abuse.
And
but in Japan, it's got a particular like. There's sort of like the lore with like cults on 2chan and hikikomoris and there's sort of like got like a different flavor to it.
Well, look
like,
how much
4chan's very like open about its targeted harassment.
Yeah.
Well, look how much something like Om Shinrikyo ended up blowing up in Japan. I mean, well, right now, actually...
That's a good way of putting it.
Well, speaking of blowing up, I mean, there was that incident today in New York City, actually, on my home turf, where there was a gas bomb and then a shooting, and multiple people were injured. And there was, I believe, a black gentleman. I'm not sure exactly who was the perpetrator of this, but it was like organized, like he wore a gas mask and everything. So imagine experience that on your commute to work. So not great.
Yeah, there've been a couple of knife attacks on trains in recent months. Yeah, that happened here as well.
Wait, here is in Japan?
Japan, yeah, in Tokyo.
Interesting. I mean, that is not what people really think of when they think of Japan. They think of the opposite. They think of everything as nice, like you said, nice and orderly and safe. So why do you think there are these just like random crazy people just going nuts, not able to handle the algorithm we're all in, or?
Yeah, there's lots of reasons. Like, for example, just the fact that you can't really freely express yourself that much. I mean, you can, but you don't. That's the issue, because you have the freedom to do so, but most people don't. Just out of courtesy, just the way they are brought up. It's best to keep the peace and just not state your opinion if it is controversial. And recent events. Like the knife attacks, I believe, were caused by them failing to get a job or like being fired because of the current situation, the COVID and all that. And some people are seeking notoriety because Japan is very much a collectivist culture and everyone is pretty much the same, and this sort of oneness, and there's this lack of individuality that some people feel. Like the last major stabbing, the guy was apparently dressed like the Joker, and
wow.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Well,
Yeah, and then after the event happened, after he stabbed a guy, he just reclined in the chair and then started smoking until he was arrested, because I think he wanted the fame.
wow. Do you think that also that is something about American culture or Western culture that is seeping into Japan? Kind of like having, the idea of individualism seeping into a nation that didn't really have as much of individualism, and there's bound to be some kind of a conflict happen.
Definitely, because the Western media is very popular here as well, and because of the internet, because of the way we are all interconnected these days, I think it's much more easy for others, more domineering cultures to seep into other ones.
Yeah. I mean, after all, Japan, as Ethan Ralph says here, it seems Japan is a society, and people are living in that society. But what
I'm
exactly?
gonna get you, Joshua Connor Moon.
What exactly, Geno? Just your personal opinion. What do you think is the right balance here? Since where have you lived before Japan? Just so we understand.
I was born in Lithuania, actually, and I spent most of my formative years in Dublin in Ireland, and
Wow.
I moved to Japan full time around 2018. I was first an English teacher up in Hokkaido, in a very small town in Hokkaido, 5,000 people.
Were you-
And then after that, I changed jobs and moved to Tokyo. That's where I am now.
Interesting. Were you ever a fan of the Nippon Ham Fighters?
No.
No. Okay. No sports, no wrestling, as Geno ended
sports,
up
no wrestling,
sadly finding out.
No
That's
No
okay.
animangos, no.
But what is your personal opinion of what the right balance is, as far as a society where people do have an opportunity to express themselves, while at the same time preventing there from being, let's say, millions of Christians out there that are just following their
Like
whimsy
sleeper
and-
stalls.
Yes, and end up being activated, and all of a sudden you have all these people that society now needs to take care of who aren't capable of taking care of themselves. Because that is kind of like a big fear, I think, that we're just being, that we're getting into an environment where we're going to have so many of these. I don't want to use the word incel, but so many of these people who cannot stand up on their own two legs that society's going to have to take care of. So I don't know. Where do you think the right balance is here?
I think that if you're more thinking of a more individualist sort of point of view, I think there will be some pros and some cons, in the same sense that there are pros and cons with the collectivist mindset as well. I think that Japan and China, for example, as well, I think excel in lots of places that a society like in the West lacks. I think, like, for example, cleanliness, for example, maintaining law and order, but they also fail in lots of parts of Asia, like, for example, freedom of expression. I think depression is also a really big thing in Japan, because you have this idea that you have to live up to a certain standard, and if you can't live up to that, it just makes you depressed. It makes you want to go back into your own self. You don't want to take part in the society. I think that's why a lot of people decide to jump in front of trains in Japan as well. Actually had that personally happen. Basically, I was in the train at one time. Yeah, and I think lots of people in Japan, especially, are. It's difficult to say, because I think the younger generations are more into, like, having control over what they're doing. Maybe this is why people are trying to go to the online world, the online sphere, like, for example, 2chan, and try to, for example, harass some people, because that just gives them a sense of control, like something they can change themselves, and they're just not some nameless, faceless cog in the system that they can actually do something with the life, be it's good or bad. I think
it
this
was
is all.
I think it was Ted Kaczynski that talked about this particular function of people living in the modern condition, where since they feel like they are powerless. I don't know, Gio, do you remember how it goes? His particular criticism when it comes to.
Yeah, that basically modern technology always implies as technological capacity increases, sort of the free autonomy of the human lessons, and there's always something we have to shed of ourselves in terms of our own innate abilities. So when you have a very high advanced tech society, there's almost as if there's a learned helplessness to it in a lot of ways, because you no longer have the need for a lot of natural abilities. And of course, he calls it over socialization as well. Like, people are so indebted to the system that they really, because they can't envision an alternative, they will fight and they will die for a way of life that in some ways is ostensibly oppressive, but in other ways gives them a form of quote unquote behavioral autonomy and like the trinkets and baubles of modern living. But of course, Japan, they have a very different relationship that's similar in some ways to they have a different relationship to technology and media than we do, of course. But the extent to which media runs our lives, I mean, that's almost universal now in the West, anyways. And whether Japan is part of the West is, of course, debatable in itself. But yeah.
Well, both for good, both for bad. I mean, I know that I tend to definitely be on the side of the West when it comes to political systems, but at the same time, I am very critical of there being a lot of creature comforts that people don't end up dealing with. Because back then, you didn't really have a choice. When you were living in feudal Japan, there were only certain ways you could survive. So I understand the kind of model that they put in place there. And you could say that maybe that gives people a certain amount of satisfaction, where I do things according to these rules and customs, and I make the best out of it. Like, I LARP as if I'm this soul entity that's been reincarnated into this particular body. I'm going to LARP this video game of being the best Japanese person that I possibly can be. And there is something satisfying to that. And maybe it has to do with that whole Buddhist idea of non-self, where you act this role that you are, but you don't really put so much mind into, I am this particular being. Although, again, I have no idea if most people there, like the rural people, if they even thought of that, but maybe that was just something that was implanted in the culture, where you didn't have to think about it, but you kind of lived it. That idea that if you identify too much with yourself, with your ego, then what are going to be all these things that you're going to do in life? Like, if you get to choose, why wouldn't you then just like watch Sonic the Hedgehog and play video games and do all that stuff instead of being a productive member?
But that's a good last question, I guess, would be for the panel, do you notice that there is sort of a breakdown in that with CWC, that there's sort of a psychic breakdown of like, now this dimensional merge, it becomes real, there's this mythology, and like, for example, the interview, the better interview with Count Dankula, that was sort of like where Count Dankula gives a voice to CWC. It's honest. It's not like that one other guy that tried to troll the whole time. But there's like this progressive break where now media franchises become, and I know this is going to sound like a total like, I'm not going to use the expletive on YouTube, but it's like this sort of like, F slur zero bucks type of analysis where CWC becomes the metaphor for modern like capitalism, because it's like the franchise of media becomes this like total identity, blah blah blah. It's like I can almost envision like the zero books title of like CWC and like capitalism, the Mark Fisher stuff. But like there is something to it that as CWC progressively breaks down into this like identification with what is like a schizophrenic fever dream. It's like now the sum total reality of CWC becomes this weird panopticon of media where we're looking at CWC's looking at us, looking at her. It's like, but at the same time, it's like there's all this like franchise from anime to Western media to, even like the Trump thing with CWC is quite interesting to me because it's like as Trump becomes this quote unquote post-truth media figure, CWC was already that. It was already like the fabulation of this person that we can all observe that, is on the edge in some ways. I don't know where I'm going with this apart from my brain is melting right now. But like,
well,
what do you think, Gino? What do you think of all of that theory saw stuff? Like,
I must say that I'm quite ignorant in most things in life, so that flew way over my head.
No, that's
no, but like the sort of like relation of CWC to media and like how we're all observing this person deteriorate. There's almost like a voyeurism to it. Like there's.
Oh, there definitely is. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't usually. I tend not to think about the moral issues regarding this. I just sit in my room and make videos. That's my life, man.
There we go.
Well, there is a comment that I like from Jen Mai Cha. We need more individualism. There is too much emphasis on the greater good and the collective. It's very dangerous thinking.
I disagree totally.
No, I agree.
There's too much. And CWC is the reason why there's too much individualism.
No, I agree, and here's why. Because I think that the individualism, where at least the way that I think of individualism, is the state of not being led like a dog, down certain paths where you're just operating at this level of not being aware of what's going on, just going with whatever powers tell you to do what. Because a lot of the quote unquote individuals that we're seeing on the internet, for example, who don't want to follow society's rules, they all end up going in a particular pattern. Whether it's the people on the left who end up adopting the hairstyle and the cat glasses and that whole SJW look, or the people on the right who have the anime avatars and the avatars of the Greek and Roman statues. Let's face it, there's a particular mold that people get into, and they become that as opposed to actually being individual. So it's a different thing, though, to say like we need more individualism versus the state that we currently have right now is where there's hardly any people who are individuals. I'd agree with that. I think most people do end up fitting molds, and even though I would want there to be more people that would be able to not be affected by those molds, I also think it's important to have good role models for people to look up to. And my last question for Geno Samuel, which I think should be much easier to answer, is what role models do you look up to, and which role models would you encourage people to look up to in your own humble Geno Samuel living in Japan from Lithuania opinion?
Wow, you say it would be an easy question to
It
answer.
is an easy question.
I don't have role models. To my understanding, I don't think I have a role model myself. I'm just living my own life.
But where did you get the ability to be the person you are? As a family, friends, like how would you trace all that? Was it just from nowhere?
From making lots of mistakes in my personal life and learning from my mistakes and realizing that I was a complete asshole in the past. Definitely.
There we go. I think that is it.
I find that hard to believe, actually. Because you seem like a very...
What do you think
that you were an
on?
asshole at one point, because
I
think
part.
what you do requires a lot of empathy and it requires a lot of introspection in terms of what you're doing. And I think that you fulfill certainly what every good documentarian should be, which is sort of like the compassionate eye that isn't going to totally compartmentalize information for like an agenda. I think that you very much fit, I think, the archetype of the documentarian the way it was, not the way it is now, which I mean, documentary making is a fucking cesspit nowadays, in my opinion. But like so to hear that you thought of yourself as someone who was, not that is very interesting.
Well, the last question that I would have is, what would you personally wish upon Chris Chan? What do you think is the best case scenario to get out of the situation that Chris is in right now?
And also, I would want that question for Rose and Billy.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's best for Chris to get some sort of group home arrangement going. I don't think Chris should get in contact with Barb anymore. There's some rumors going about that maybe the house has been cleared out basically, and then Barb is living with extended family at the moment. So I don't think Chris is going to go back home. Whether Chris is released, I really don't know. I mean, if they are, I think is best if she is kept away from the internet. At least I think is better for her. I think it's better. Hopefully people won't know too much about what is going on with her personal life if she ever gets out. Like I wish that people would contact her a lot less. I think unfortunately it's best for Chris to continue to make herself a bit more anonymous, a bit more aloof from this point onwards. I mean, she had opportunity. She almost had it. You know, Null created this like Kickstarter, and for Chris to travel to a BronyCon convention, and Chris was gonna go, and Chris was apparently gonna meet this person who was apparently really attracted to her, and wanted to
Oh man.
get with it. Chris was so close to like being this sort of almost like cult symbol. I mean, people have already been dressing up as Sonichu and going to conventions as Sonichu or as Chris Chan, for example, wearing these Sonichu medallions. Chris could have gotten this sort of infamy if just didn't do that thing.
Now it's ruined, yeah.
Yeah, he could have been like that old Japanese German professor in, I believe, Akira Kurosawa's final film, Madadayo, which some people aren't big fans of, but I highly recommend you check it out, where this professor, his students, they ended up having kids, and those kids ended up having kids, and every year they just had this festival in honor of their professor that they respected so much. So there could have been, and who knows, maybe there may be in the future just some kind of a community around Chris Chan that would just be supporting and making sure that Chris Chan doesn't get into any trouble. And I'm not talking like internet people, but just like some people who would kind of, hold Chris Chan close in their life. But anyway, the final thing from Reddit. So this was something that Billy Pratt posted to me. This was a request from Reddit. You can accept it or not accept it. Is to say want woman as read in capital letters.
Fine. Want woman.
Yes, I do love that that voice,
Yeah.
that genuflection you do whenever you read out the capitals. That is beautiful. As well as the music, I forgot to say, the music that you put in the documentary, especially towards the very end of every episode where it just starts getting all dramatic and it's just, mwah, it's very beautiful.
It really is the signature of it all, the theme song.
Yes.
Yeah. But before we go off, there's this comment from Museum Privilege, CWC to CCRU pipeline. Oh, I'm gonna end myself right now. I'm like reading that.
No,
That's
okay.
terrible.
Okay.
Sorry, Sunset. Corey, Ethan Ralph, Sunset, Marcel.
All right, and also Super Chat. We have just a little bit of Super Chats here. Oh, and by the way, sneed those Super Chats. I'm reading the Super Chats right now. If you want one more Super Chat, just squeeze in there, sneed one out. So here we go. It is from Massive McGee. What about the CWCville Tulpa question? Good stream. I mean, I think we covered that already. Geno, I from what I get, I'm not sure if you are more of a spiritual person. Probably not. That's not really an interest of yours as far as what exactly is out there, as far as whatever, tulpas, anything of that nature. Yeah.
I'm more of a materialist,
Yeah, so we're not really going to get much with the tulpas. Who knows what's out there? It's all an interesting journey. Anyway, those are all the Super Chats, unless I get one more. And while I would see if the Super Chats are coming in, I also wanted to say patreon.com/breaktherules. If you guys enjoyed this stream and if you want more of these high-quality streams with high-quality guests like Geno Samuel, Rose of Dawn, Bad Billy Pratt, Giovanni Pennacchietti, and Lev Polyakov at LevPo on Twitter, by the way. Follow me on Twitter. What you have to do is become a patron. There's going to be Patreon-only episodes coming on very soon. You are not going to want to miss them. We're going to be talking about health, farming, all kinds of ways that you can make sure that you're not going to be affected by whatever changes are occurring to a great extent, as well as very interesting guests who are more of a niche nature. Those are going to be discussed on Patreon. When you become a $5 patron, that's what you're going to get. When you become a $20 patron, you are going to get a very beautiful magnet. So, Geno, I don't know if you know this, but my father, Alexander, he does these very beautiful magnets, which you can see on the screen over here. They are made of high-quality wood. They come in all kinds of designs, and you guys are going to get a random magnet if you become a $20 patron. If you become a $30 patron, you are going to get a very beautiful print from Giovanni Pennacchietti. Here is a short video showing off the print. I think you can, you can see it in action right here, or at least the chat can see it in action. Here, I can click on this and you can see it in action too.
There you go.
Yes, I have a higher quality chat superimposed on a lower quality one, but this way you can see what's going on here. And lastly, when you become a $50 patron, you are going to get a custom magnet, whatever design you want. Or you can get, if you're a fan of Styx Hexenhammer 666, who recently became a father. Congratulations, Styx.
Congratulations.
Baby girl. So you can have a beautiful Styx dragon like the one you see on the screen over here, or a custom magnet. And in addition to that, Warhammer 40K figures from Jules P. Hamilton. In addition to that, a painting from Giovanni Pennacchietti in the Bob Ross style. And in addition to that, you are going to have our undying love and affection from everybody here who contributes on BTR.
Oh, and a poster print of any...
Oh, yes. Well, yes. Oh, another thing I want to say about Patreon. This is important. I don't say this before because I did not factor this in, but I'm going to factor it in right now. I want to make sure people don't just become a patron for like a day or a week and then expect to get the print. It has to be at least around like a half year of the 20, 30, 50 patronage for that particular thing, just because these things, they do take a lot. And again, really appreciate the patronage, but there has to be a certain amount of time here, because there was an incident recently where something like that happened. So I want to make sure that everybody is in the know about that, so there's not going to be any surprises. So anyway, patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron today. You're going to get all these things, plus the undying love of the entire BTR community. Speaking of which, become a member of the BTR Discord. Here is the link to a Discord. Join it right now. You are not going to be unimpressed. You are going to be very impressed at the level of big brain discourse going on there. And lastly, the stream that is going to be happening this Friday is going to be about U.S. hegemony. Is U.S. hegemony a force for good? So it's going to be a very interesting stream.
Or is it the Great Satan?
Or is it the Great Satan? And that's going to be with counterpoints versus that character that was played by Dustin Hoffman, Dr. Ben Braddock. And by the way, if you look at that thumbnail very closely, I think you're going to see something I put into the doctor's face, since he doesn't have a face like that Oni that Geno did a video about. Mm-hmm. But if you look real careful at that, I think you're going to see something. I wonder if I should actually show it off. Gio, do you want me to show it off in the in the screen so that people see what it is?
Yeah, I was answering Oscar's question. Yes, Jackson Pollock was a shaman. Yeah, might as well have. Then.
Yes, and then we are going to end this. So here we go. I am upping the contrast.
Oh, but also Rose and Billy, if you want to show.
Yes.
Rose, what is their upcoming? Billy was recently also on Oren McIntyre's stream. I actually watched.
Oh, nice.
One of the better Oren streams.
Thank you.
And going by Billy's book.
Yes.
Welcome to Hell.
Welcome to Hell.
Welcome to Hell by Bad Billy Pratt, available on Amazon.com. If you want to read about the darkness of modern dating or heartbreak. If you want to laugh, I think it's kind of funny too.
If you want to cry.
I talk about pop culture and music, so it has a little bit of everything, kind of like Delicious Tacos meets Chuck Klosterman. So check out Welcome to Hell on Amazon.
Nice. And you could also follow Billy Pratt online at Killed Party. So here is the Twitter. Is there anything else here we have? Well, we have killtheparty.com. Where does that go?
Killtheparty.com is the blog. At Killtheparty is the Twitter. So check it out.
Excellent. And, of course, the lovely Rose of Dawn. Thank you so much for joining the stream again. And where could people find you?
So I have a YouTube channel called Rose of Dawn. If you're interested in some Chris Chan content that's been made by me, I did a video a couple of years ago as part of a series that I do called Pillars of the Community, where I discuss kind of controversial transgender activists. That series was entirely inspired by Geno's own Chris Chan series. So you can give that a try. I've got a new video coming out on my channel tomorrow. I've had a bit of a break for a while because I've been kind of dealing with various things, and sometimes burnout is hard. Burnout is really hard to get over. So don't underestimate it. It's not fun. But tomorrow I've got a new video coming out, and then afterwards I'll be streaming on Twitch, where I'll be playing a game called Seal World. So people who follow me on Twitter or have watched like my live stream series Seal of Approval know that I absolutely love seals. And a game has come out on Twitch called Seal World, and so I'm going to be speed running that. I'm going to try and go for the world record, so come hang out tomorrow.
Nice. And you were also, here we go, you also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Rose of Dawn.
Yep.
So people can contribute to the Patreon. And Billy Pratt, do you have a Patreon?
I do not yet have a Patreon.
All right. So
go to
then,
my YouTube channel,
yes.
Genre Productions. I'm going to release a promo video for a live stream I did where we talk about me and my buddy Will Sampson, and he has a podcast where we talk about Francis Bacon through Deleuze, and Francis Bacon's becoming kind of popular because of the YouTuber Blind Dweller. He did a 3-part series on the painter. So
Nice.
It's a bunch of theory cell stuff.
And also, before the final shilling of Geno Samuel, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/LevPo. Check out my artwork. I'm working right now on a crypto NFT art series that's going to be coming out, and one in particular that I recently made from the Muskull series on Super Rare is this guy over here, whose name is Truster. So Geno, watch Truster go. Let's see, I'm going to turn it on. Here we go. What do you think of that?
No.
Wait, did it play?
Yeah. Oh, you're not seeing
I
it
don't
here.
see it.
Here we go. Okay, now you're going to see it. I keep getting confused about the screens. Do you see it?
I see it.
Yeah. So
I don't want to see it.
I wish I could.
I don't even want to know what that
Gino,
is.
you seriously have the best deadpan delivery. Like, just your delivery in your series cracks me up.
Thanks.
it is amazing. And where could the good people follow you, Geno?
I'm doing a lot of things. I got my fingers in lots of pies at the moment. Please go to my YouTube channel, Geno Samuel, if you're interested in checking out some music that I make. Music is the main thing that I hope to do. I do lots of different styles like prog rock and electronic stuff, synth pop, stuff like that. Very much 80s influenced. And I got some new projects coming up very, very soon. Please check it out. Next, if you're into the Chris Chan stuff, please go to Geno Samuel 2.1 on YouTube. The next episode, part 62, is out in about 10 days. So look out for that.
Nice.
And after that, please check out Geno Samuel 3 for documentaries that are not about Chris Chan. I got some yokai stuff like Monsters of Japan, and I hope to do some other subjects as well in the future, including one very, very detailed documentary about the Terra Nova expedition to Antarctica. It's going to be like 4 or 5 hours long. It's really my passion project at the moment. So I hope to get it out as soon as possible, maybe in a couple of months. So
Please check
subscribe.
it out. And also, you have a Patreon as well?
I do, yes. Patreon.com/Geno Samuel if you're interested in supporting me.
There we are. So, Geno, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for being here, speaking with us about your work, about Chris Chan, about your music, about Japan. This has been amazing conversation. I couldn't ask for a better stream. And
We've
everybody,
been talking
please
about this
having
for
me.
a few months now. Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
please make sure you set a reminder. Don't close this stream just yet. Set a reminder to the stream that's happening that you'll see right after this one. It's going to be happening this Friday, very late. It's going to be happening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So get ready for that. That is coming, and here is the link for it. And with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Have a great